Welcome back to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. Today's episode, Self-Sabotage.
I find the beauty in commotion, swimming by the gale, miles away.
Welcome back to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. Today's episode is about self-sabotage. Now, self-sabotage affects us all. We all do it. And we're going to go over some ways that we all have, some behaviors that we all have that are self-sabotage. You just might not know it. We're going to go over some ways to help yourself and a few other things about self-sabotage. And of course, you're going to hear wonderful stories about how we have self-sabotaged ourselves. Right, Sarah?
Yep, guilty.
Guilty. Okay, so I try to always start off with the definition. I've looked up the definition. I want to make sure we have the actual definition of self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is when you intentionally act in ways that hinder our own progress or success. It can manifest in various forms such as procrastination, perfectionism, negative self-talk, fear of failure, and overcommitting. So those are some of them.
I have to interrupt. When you read that, I heard is when we intentionally, and my brain went, no,
unintentionally.
I don't do it on purpose. Thank you. So I don't know if you said unintentionally or if you said the other one, but my brain went, because
I think I said intentionally and I meant unintentionally because I'm reading it and my brain says one thing and my mouth says another sometimes.
Because I think intentionally sabotaging is different, because I think self-sabotage is a subconscious thing.
It is.
Sometimes we consciously, sometimes we're well aware.
Yes, we are. And I've done that. And I know my husband's done that more than once. And so there is when you consciously make the decision to sabotage the situation because maybe you don't want to really do it. And you just don't want to admit you don't want to do it, so you sabotage it.
Yep.
But this is unintentional. So self-sabotage is unintentional. So some wonderful behaviors that are self-sabotaging are procrastination, perfectionism, fear of failure, negative self-talk, and overcommitting. Sarah, how many of those have you done?
I feel attacked.
No.
Redirect.
Okay, I'll go into them. What I've done, I am really good at procrastination. I have like the queen of procrastination at times. Perfectionism, I have been that way. Like I didn't start my own massage business until I was in the massage field for over 15 years because I kept saying, I don't know enough about running a business. I don't know enough about this. I don't know enough about that. And finally I said, yeah, I don't know enough about it, but you know what? I'm going to make mistakes. Let's go. And that's when I stopped the perfectionism for the massage therapy business.
Do you think perfectionism is coming up when you think about your move?
To a point, but then to another point, no. I think that's why I kind of like, I think actually that's Joey. You know how I told you he takes over the designing and all that stuff? He is such a perfectionist that I think that instead of me self-sabotaging, I gave him the control of it so that he can sabotage the whole thing.
Do you know what? That's interesting. Is because something you said to me earlier, why you would contract out and not use him. Do you remember the two reasons you gave me?
Because we would kill each other. We almost did the last time. And he would take 3 years to do it.
So we are well aware of what his self-sabotaging behaviors are. Aren't we lovely women? It's so much easier to point out other people's self-sabotaging behaviors than our own. That's why I was like, I know I said I was going to tell stories, but like it hurts behind my ears right now. Let's tell stories about other people.
It took him 3 months to do this 700 square foot area. And the only reason we got it done was because we both got COVID and we couldn't work.
Right. So maybe it was also overcommitting. Maybe also overcommitting is something that came up.
Well, he has to work his regular job and then he only could do this at nights and on weekends. So, But, and that's why
So
we're like trying to get the contractor this time, because I'm not going to put him through that. His bipolar was like going like this on a daily basis. And I was getting whiplash, and my clients that stopped by to see how things were, they were getting frustrated with him. And I'm like, it's not him. It's his bipolar. He just doesn't, he gets into a stress state, and this is what he does. So
yeah, it's too much of a project.
yeah. And
Well,
this is a
and
bigger
that's the thing, like
office.
we can get in a success state of mind. We can get in a I'm going to get this accomplished state of mind, and we can get things done. At the same time, it's interesting how these things come up and how they play a part. And then once they're done, we're able to look back and be like, hey, what happened? And then we can have a chat about it and learn things. And so then next time you're like, no, I'm going to set myself up for success this time, because now I know my partner better. Now I know myself better. Now I know the situation better. I'm like, this is the definition of why we're doing this podcast, is because at this point we've had some really amazing experiences. And so when we talk about self-sabotage, big things come up for us. It's like, I am well aware that I am sabotaging myself. Like at the end of the day, I'm aware, but as it happens throughout the day, I don't know what's happening. One of mine is negative self-talk. You know,
I
I
know.
come to you often. I come to you often. And it's funny because as soon as I'm out of it, I'm like, oh my God, stop crying about it. Stop, move on from the thing. Use radical acceptance. Choose a tool, honey. And so it's so funny, by the time I come out of it, I'm like, how long did she get to listen to me this time?
And I don't mind. When it comes to when you're going through that, sometimes, sometimes I'll sit there and I'm trying to pull you out, and you keep pulling yourself back in, and I get you partially out, and so that happens. And then other times I just let you go, because I know that, so with me, I have to get it all out. I can't have, and you've seen it because you've been there when I'm having a moment, and I'm like, I'll listen to you, but in my head, I'm going, I don't need to hear this right now. All I need is to let my shit out. And once it's out, it's out. So let's move on. But let me get it out. So sometimes I give you
Yeah.
that grace, I know I
Yeah.
need. And sometimes I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, but okay, and how are we going to get away from that feeling? So sometimes I try to pull you out, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm not even going to try. I'll just listen.
Well, and honestly, I think that I hope everybody has this in their life, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a coach, whether it's a counselor, that person where they can have their big feelings and feel safe having their big feelings before their more rational decision-making feelings can come into play, and then they can get on with their life. I really hope that, like everybody in the world, again, if you don't have that in your life, reach out to us. That is absolutely something that we're offering here. As you overcome things, as you create big things, you're gonna fail. It's gonna happen. You're gonna sabotage yourself, and we're going to help you get through it. And we want to help you become aware of ways that you can sabotage yourself. And so the couple of ways we've talked about is procrastination, perfection. I'm a negative self-talker.
Committing, I'm really good with that, because I'm always like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I come back and say, well, I've got this. Wait, hold on. I have this at the same time. Wait, hold on. I got this. I have the BNI thing. Oh, I have massage. Oh, I got it. My daughter has to go here. And then I'm going, I don't know where my day goes. And it's always like, I didn't get to sit down and do
Right.
this at the computer because I was doing this, and this, and this. And I didn't make time for what I wanted to do and what I needed to do, because I was doing all these other things as well. And so overcommitment, learn to say no sometimes, or learn to at least, and I'm still in the process of getting this one, because I'm really good at the whole, to overcommitting, to at least make time for yourself, and make time for make a list of what's important for you, and try to work that in on a daily basis. And then negative self-talk, we both can
Yeah.
do it. I think I did it, what was it, the other day? I think I texted you something about we're afraid it's going to fail, but in all reality, you don't fail until you give up. I might make a mistake, I might not get where I want to be, but I didn't fail. I just have to relook at the situation. Or if I give up, that's a failure. Then it becomes a failure. And then the other aspect of that is fear of success, which leads, that's a whole nother can of worms, which you can do almost similar things because you're so afraid of succeeding and what that could mean that you're like, no, it's self-consciously you're saying you're doing little things to keep you from succeeding.
We've all got a comfort zone. We've all got that place that we feel comfortable. And the only way to get ourselves out of this comfort zone is to start to acknowledge some of these things that are holding us back and that are stopping us from getting there, is to take some of these strategies. So what are the things that can help people overcome self-sabotage?
Okay, so we all know, I'm ignoring that. We all know that we need to challenge our limiting beliefs. And one reason we need to challenge when it comes to this, our limiting beliefs are part of that self-sabotage. When you think that you're not going to do well doing something or you're not good enough for this, you're going to self-sabotage immediately. You're going to procrastinate. You're going to do all those things. Cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. So there are some of those that can help. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail right now because I want to do a whole different podcast on what that is, because that's one of those things that you need a little time to go into, and we don't want to spend too much time. That's a long-term situation. Affirmations, being positive. Like today, I am going to do this. I'm going to succeed at this today. I'm going to create this positivity in my life today. I'm going to think 7 things great about myself. Oh, yep,
It says,
you got
I
it.
am smart. I am smart. I close sales.
Yep. So, where'd I go? I went into visualization. So, visualizing your success, visualizing you are getting through that day, whatever it is. And what I read a book. It's called High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. And the one thing I really loved about her book was the truth. Visualization is amazing, but you can't just visualize the end point. You have to visualize the steps during it. So like she used the idea of, you want to run the Boston Marathon. That's great. You can visualize yourself at the ending. You can visualize yourself crossing the finish line, but you also need to visualize yourself getting up in the middle of January and running in 2-degree weather and making yourself do that, because that's what you need to do to get to that finish line. So
That's so important. That's such a great point to talk about visualizing the person that you're going to be, the activities that you're going to be taking along the way. So it's really important to not just visualize yourself at the end of the finish line, holding the trophy. Don't just visualize yourself in that. Visualize yourself tying your shoes, running on the track every day. And that's important. I've never thought of that before. I've never thought about that.
I know, and sometimes if you can sit there and you can visualize, and this is something I started doing, and it can go down a negative path, but you have to know how to take yourself out of that negative path. But if you visualize any possible things that could come up. So you know how we discuss how I have this way of seeing things, like I can, that not that you're telling me them, but I go, yeah, and what about this? And you're like, oh man, I didn't tell her about that part. It's because I will sit there and in a situation, I'm also visualizing all the different things that could go wrong with that situation, so that I understand all parts of it. And you have to train your brain to look at not only the positive aspects, look for the positive aspects, but also look for the parts that are going to be possible. I don't want to say failure points, but possible points of struggle, of challenge that, right, that could make you want to give up or make you feel like failing. If you can visualize those as well, you can also visualize yourself coming up with a solution to them as well. So that's a really important thing. And that's something I do try to do, not when I'm in my most emotional states, which you have seen me in. I don't visualize anything like that in those states. Self-compassion, understanding. I'm going to put self-compassion. I'm also going to put accepting imperfections together, and then practicing kindness towards yourself. All 3 of those go together. Okay. Because self-compassion, accepting your imperfections, and practicing that kindness towards yourself, you have to accept our imperfection. We have to accept our imperfections. If we don't do that, you can't practice kindness. You can't practice self-compassion, because you're always going to looking negative at yourself, because you're not seeing them as these are imperfections, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're failures or bad things about me. That just means that these are things that are not perfect. So part of that self-acceptance, self-compassion, kindness towards yourself is accepting that we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We just have to move forward with it.
Makes me think about radical acceptance.
Yes, to a point.
Yep. It's just interesting how all the tools that we're learning, all the tools that we're sharing, they're starting to overlay. So now we've given tools, and now the tools can become strategies. It's really exciting.
Yes, there's a
And I
lot of
guess
the
like,
tools that come from each one of the things we've gone over that are the same thing. It's the same thing. And it's just it's exercising when it comes to a certain situation. So it's kind of nice because once you start practicing it, you can start practicing it for everything.
yep. So one of the things I've realized I use as a strategy to overcome self-sabotage is I set realistic goals. I set goals all the time that are, that's interesting that I say that. I'm saying I set realistic goals. I don't think I do. I think the goals that I set for myself are not realistic. And that may be one of the ways I'm self-sabotaging over and over again. Because what I was going to say, what I was planning on communicating when I started talking was I need to stop using setting goals, because I think I already used that. And also I'm creating change right now. So if I know I use it, I'd like to use something else. But I just realized I'm not using setting realistic goals. Megan,
No,
how would you feel about us recording a goal setting session where
that'd
we
be
each
great.
set goals?
That'd be great. So yeah, so setting, yeah, I think that you and I have one definite issue, and we set these goals for ourselves and for our businesses that are here, and we're still in this process. And so the other parts of that is we can have these goals. I want to have the goal of having, the house that I can have my mom and dad and aunt move down and give them each their own like in-law suite with their own kitchen and everything. I want to have that. That's what I want. But how do I
Yep.
get there? And that's those small achievable goals as you go.
Yep. So we need to practice the visualization of ourself along the way. We should record that too. Because that's what I want to create with this podcast is transformation, is change. And having the both of us consistently showing up and talking about things that we know like the back of our hand. I love that in the beginning of this, you talk about looking up the definition. And I appreciate that you do that, because while we both feel very familiar with this topic, we want to make sure the definition is, and I think it's really important to kind of understand what these concepts are, but then at the same time, kind of set it aside, kind of choose that I'm not going to self-sabotage anymore. Now I'm going to choose this. So it's like when we're going along this journey, if you're taking this journey with us, don't get wrapped up and lost in figuring out all of the ways that you self-sabotage. They're probably more than you know, but do spend a little bit of time looking at where your time goes and where your time could go instead in order to create the results that you want to create. Because that's something that's changed for me since we started the podcast, is putting my time towards more of what I want to create. And that's what I want to help people do through the podcast, is take these ideas or these concepts that we're talking about and then implement them and then say, hey, this is the result I got because I made this change.
Well, and that kind of goes to the part where I wanted to talk about identifying your self-sabotaging patterns. You don't need to spend forever doing that. I mean, most of us, if we really sit there and even spend 30 minutes thinking, you can think of at least 20 different times that you have self-sabotaged. So one is self-reflection exercises, journaling. Sit there and journal about your last 20 days or last 10 days and journal what did you use? Did you use the negative self-talk? Did you use, and then just to give yourself an example of it. And that's all you need. You don't need to go through every single part of your life and how you self-sabotage. You need to learn the ones that are the most prevalent for you. Like for you, negative self-talk is one of the biggest ones. I do the overcommitting and the perfectionism. I know I do. And I have for many, many years. Like things aren't good enough, I'm not doing it. And that's like where my brain goes. So I know those are the two ones. So I'm trying not to do it as much. We're working on it. I am a work in progress on that one. But So journaling about them, even if you just journal a week, you probably have self-sabotaged yourself in the last week somehow, some way. And you just do that and then get that one under control and then go and look for another one. And then do this little steps at a time, because it's not, you can't attack all of them at once.
Right, right.
But celebrate the small wins. So like I have started, I was so excited over the summer because my stepdaughter she had a vitamin D deficiency, and I literally said, okay, well, I guess we're going to the beach. So we got up, and a few days after I did one massage or I did my BNI meeting, we went to the beach for the afternoon. And for me, that was a big thing for me to step away from everything and do that. And I don't normally do that. So for me, that was like a big thing of me, celebrating a small win. And I posted it. I was like, I'm so excited. And a lot of it, my posting and stuff, was me celebrating the fact that I took time away. I did not sit there and go home and work on the computer, try to find something else for me to look up to do that would be overcommitting myself by having 9 different things that I need to still learn about the back office stuff. And I didn't do that. I said, okay, I'm stepping away and I'm going to the beach. Because my stepdaughter needed me.
Well, and I love how you were able to give yourself a break, but not until that break had more meaning. So once your break could mean that she's getting the thing she needs, you were able to give yourself your permission to take that break. And that's one of those things that, like, I mean, eventually we can take a break that's just for ourselves, that doesn't have any higher purpose or meaning other than just taking a break for ourselves. But right now, we are both women who are in a time of growth, and we're pedal to the metal. And so being able to be present and focused, to not be multitasking and just be present with your daughter at the beach there, it's really important to have that. And I think that's another thing that we can offer as a strategy to overcoming self-sabotage, is getting present to the moment. Like, what's really going on right now? What is the temperature outside? What are you looking at? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? Like, really getting present to what's going on to get you out of that cycle or that repetitive behavior that is the self-sabotage.
Definitely. And yes, I do have to right now, and that's just part of my brain. That might be part of that perfectionism and that, or whatever part of my self-sabotage. I have to have a reason. Can't just be for me. It has to be for one of my daughter or my stepdaughter for me to do something, because that's means I'm doing something bigger than myself or more than myself. And that's a whole nother can of worms we do not need to get into right now. But so you also want to build a support network. And I know that being a coach, obviously one of the parts of it is getting a coach that can sit with you and go through it with you, like I do with you and some of my other clients. But you do the same for me. You do the same for me. So it's building that support network can really help you, because you can get someone who can let you get it all out and then says, okay, what are we going to do from here? That's really important to me, is let me get it out and then say, okay, what are we going to do now? I know you're feeling this, but where are we going?
Yeah. That, which makes me think of when we talked about, when we're going through big feelings, it's okay to feel defeated. It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to be frustrated with a setback, but just don't unpack and live there. Remember that where it is we're going is, and I can define this for you, but if you haven't taken the time to define where it is you're going, if you haven't, created a picture that's got emotion attached to it that you can taste and smell and feel. I don't know what happens. One timer. Okay.
No, definitely. And like that's the big thing. Like obviously we're doing the podcast. It's for coaching. It's for us to help people, maybe who don't have that support system, who don't have those kind of people in their lives that can give them what we can. But in general, just having those kind of people that can really, those positive people that are wanting to hear you and wanting to help you, those are the important people to have in your life, to really go through that and talk to them about that. So any last thoughts before we end, Miss Sarah, since we're holding ourselves accountable right now?
No, I think we covered a whole bunch of ways to get yourself out of self-sabotage. I think there's a couple of steps, figuring out how it is that you're self-sabotaging, but becoming aware, and then choosing a strategy to overcome the way that you're self-sabotaging, and then deciding that you're not going to do it anymore. So it really doesn't matter if you know how you're self-sabotaging and you know how to solve the problem. If you're not taking the action, if you're not doing something differently, if you're not creating change, you're just going to stay in that same cycle of getting the thing that you don't want. So if you're looking for some help or support in creating change in your life, reach out to Megan or myself, Sarah, and we would be happy to help you along the way. Thanks for joining us for another podcast episode.
Bye, everyone.